The year is 2016. The movement shooter is dead in the water. The Doom series has been stuck in a sort of limbo ever since 2004 really. But id Software promises to kickstart the engines of violence once again, with Doom. It's called Doom! It's like Doom, guys. Remember Doom? It's going to be just like that. It's why we called it Doom. Reboots with just a plain brand name don't have the best track record. In fact, I can't really think of any, aside from the obvious, that knocked it out of the park. The multiplayer open beta was panned by the PC crowd for trying too hard to be like the hip and cool modern shooters. Just a few days before release, Bethesda refused to send out review codes to critics early. The game looked like another mediocre corporate cash grab, with little soul or understanding why people like the games. Friday the 13th rolled around and the game was utterly fantastic. Not only did it bring the speed and ferocity of all related shooters from the past 20 years, it added a pacing and structure that worked flawlessly and felt like an entire new beast. The game wasn't merely a translation of the 90s id catalog into the HD era, it just gave us everything we didn't know we wanted. Doom was back in town. For a few weeks everyone was talking about it. The audience and critics loved it. All that they could do now is make a sequel. Everyone knew it was capable of making a smash hit movement shooter in the modern era at this point, so the hype for Doom Eternal was absolutely through the roof. And you know the craziest thing? They delivered. Doom Eternal featured an even more expanded and complex take on the combat systems from 4 years ago. The identity of the gameplay was now more specialized. The developers wanted the experience to feel more like real-time chess, moving at 100 km. Well, I guess they would have said miles an hour. The thinking man's shooter, they called it. Success was equally dependent on inherent skill as well as the intellectual choices you make. The audience was raucous in the reception. Now, why am I making this video? Well, I've been playing this game on and off for the past 4 years. The game is very good, but there are many big and small things it gets really wrong, in my view. I respect it, truly. You can't make something people will love without upsetting some who will hate it. The worst thing you could do, as far as artistic expression goes, is try to please everyone. The experience will be hated by no one, but it will be a non-partisan product, void of substance and identity. Some of these thoughts have been stewing in me for this entire time, and on my most recent playthrough I found they still hold strong, and I even found new things to whine about. So I felt this might be the best time to express them. Now, as with all my critiques, these observations should be taken as feedback, rather than any rugging on the game, or studio behind it. I want to make constructive remarks, because without feedback we won't ever get anything better. I might be brutally honest in places, but don't take this as reflective of my opinion on the game as a whole. Furthermore, many of these points aren't going to be things I dislike and avoid, but rather things I dislike in a Doom game. Things I think don't belong in this type of shooter. What even is a Doom game is going to differ between people. So this video will be based off my interpretation. Which is fine, because you clicked on this video to hear my thoughts and opinions, and you enjoy respectfully discussing games you like with others, right? The main star of the show, the combat, has had its complexity dialed up by many notches from Doom 4. The player character can now perform 2 quick dashes with a short cooldown. The chainsaw has 3 fuel pips, so small enemies cost 1 pip to kill, mid-tier demons cost all 3, and the dwellers of the Your Mom class cannot be chainsawed at all. You now have an equipment launcher letting you fire off grenades or ice bombs you can swap between, without having to lower your gun. The flame belch is also new. Enemies set ablaze will drop shards of armor when shot further. The Blood Punch is a powerful melee attack with a shockwave you can use once, before having to recharge it by performing exactly 2 glory kills. No more, no less, until you've reached an arbitrary point in the campaign when you only need 1 glory kill on a heavy or heavier demon. You can also recharge it by picking up health and armor when full on the respective resource, but only when you've unlocked 2 specific and respective capacity upgrades. What the fuck? Arbitrary is the word of the day. The purpose of the previous paragraph was to put this word in your head. It really is this arbitrarily complicated. I know this is just the start of my critique, but please keep this in mind. The general feeling I'm getting from the overall design decisions is that they work fine in the broader balance of the systems, but that's also the most general reason why they work the way they do. Why does a rocket launcher shoot a slow explosive projectile? Well, that's what rocket launchers do in real life. They took this concept and adapted it to work well within the systems of the game. Why does a blood punch work the way it does? Well, that's just how the game is designed. It's not bad design, it works well. Blood Punch is a good panic button that doesn't expend ammo, has some crowd control, falters enemies, but requires you to be within punching distance. However, it also doesn't feel like it was added to fix any specific problem, but for gimmick's sake, and then honed to make it practical. I know I've been focusing on the Blood Punch, but that's just an example. The Microwave Beam mod, the dashes, the Sentinel Hammer in the DLC are all subject to this. But such a complex web of interlinking systems isn't really something I'm looking for in a Doom game. To me, a Doom game is using simple but distinct weapons to fight simple but distinct enemies in complex scenarios set up by the level designer. The amount of abilities and things that you can do or have done to you almost feel like I'm playing XCOM or something, a turn-based strategy game. A high praise, I love XCOM, but I don't think this sort of comparison is what a Doom game should be evoking. To focus on the player abilities further, I want to add that I'm not a fan of how so many of them are on timer cooldowns. Is it just me, or are timers just a really lazy way to limit how much a player can do something? A timer just requires you to wait it out, but a proactive method requires you to engage with the game. Let's go back to the Blood Punch. Is it arbitrarily complicated? Yes. Do I prefer that it requires me to glory kill to recharge it? Also yes. Gaining a Blood Punch means that I will go a bit out of my way to perform a glory kill. A timer on my frag grenade means that I do whatever I would have been doing anyway until it comes back. I've also got a bone to pick with the new movement options. Monkey bars, climbable walls, the dash, this is what they've traded bunny hopping for. These abilities are just so boring. Wow, you pressed a button and your character did everything for you. I'm not saying this doesn't require some proficiency to use well, but it's just a boring thing to do on its own. Bunny hopping requires some knowledge of the game's movement system and a bit of mechanical skill. It's far more satisfying to perform than what we've got in the new Dooms. There just isn't any movement tech involved. You just press a button and your character does everything for you. Unfortunately, the game's primarily designed for consoles, and bunny hopping would be a really hard thing to do on a controller. So we probably will never get it back in an id game. Or rocket jumping. Still, a man can dream. The climbable walls are the most pointless addition. They are almost never used as part of combat, but only for platforming or secrets. Bit of a shame, as in Dusk, there is a power-up called Climbing Thing. That's the actual name, this is not a joke. I had great fun using it to exploit the verticality of well-designed levels to my advantage in combat. There's also absolutely no reason to actually stick to these walls. Leaping off gives you a lot of additional momentum, so it's far easier to just jump around and stick to them momentarily. The equipment launcher is my last point of contention here. I like that the ice bomb is now a character ability, rather than a mod for the plasma rifle. It was just too good to pass up, and if someone had, they'd be essentially gimping themselves. Giving it to everyone solves this problem. However, the equipment launcher key is shared between the ice bomb and the frag grenade, which are toggled between with another key. If operating this requires two keys anyway, then why not just assign each key to each projectile? My guess is that the Flame Belch was at some point one of these toggleable options, meaning a key would have been saved in such a setup. But the way things are now, you either have to check which grenade you've got selected every time before you fire, or make sure to always have one selected, and only swap to the other when you want to use it. With a key for each attack, you'd just memorize which one is under which. Arguably the most radical and important aspect of this game is the unique approach to the combat loop. Much like in Doom 4, most enemies fire slow projectiles or are melee hitscan. There is also no penalty for moving around, so the recipe for success is to always keep moving. The demons are fairly tanky, so you cannot gun them down before they pose any threat. You must engage with their combat abilities and use positioning, mobility, and the features of the arena to your advantage. Scarcity of resources is the main driving force behind most of your actions. There's not many health pickups. Instead, you recover by glory killing enemies when they're low on health. You can recover armor by using the Flame Belch, another ability on a timer, and the chainsaw is your source of ammo. The chainsaw has up to 3 pips of fuel. You need only 1 to kill the small enemies, but 3 to kill the heavy demons. You cannot chainsaw super heavies at all. The first pip of fuel is recovered, of course, on a timer, and further units must be recovered with pickups. I must commend Doom Eternal for making glory kills actually worth doing over Doom 4. In the predecessor, they would give you too little health to be worth exposing yourself to a potential unavoidable attack once your iframes have worn off. You would get significantly more HP if you were low on health, but the threshold was so low that you can often be in one-shot territory and still get a measly 5 health. Doom Eternal increases this threshold, and this alone is enough to make me glory kill when the situation is getting dire. However, overall, I'm still not pleased with the reliance on locking you into animations for these actions. They look cool overall and are mostly satisfying, but they end up feeling kind of artificial. You're not the one ripping the demons apart, it's an animation that some animator in Texas created. In a way, they are the ones having the fun and you're watching. Furthermore, they're downtime. You're not doing anything while the animation is happening, but your enemies are. They are moving around, they are attacking you. You've got iframes during this action, but that doesn't prevent an attack from landing just as they've worn off. They also feel a bit janky with how, once you press E, your character teleports to some point in space that isn't quite predictable, and then you resume control in another. Overall, they've done a very good job with making them feel smooth and seamless, but it's not perfect, and it's the kind of thing that will age the game something fierce. It also leaves you at the mercy of the game to decide which target will be taken. I'm also not a fan of the shift in the approach to the intensity of enemy attacks. It feels like every demon shoots at least a little more often than in Doom 4, and some of the projectiles are actually harder to see individually. The visual chaos is overall a bigger problem. In Doom 4, there was a lot going on, but it never felt like it was impossible to escape unscathed. And if you've made a mistake, you're gonna have to glory kill to recover. In Doom Eternal, there are so many attacks flying around at any time that I refuse to believe any person is capable of keeping track of all of this. You're expected to get hit, and you're expected to keep recovering. That's where the primary satisfaction comes from in this game, acquiring much needed resources in different interesting ways. But it also makes the combat feel messy, and like getting hit is a given, not a punishment. Success in combat is less about learning the quirks and patterns of each enemy type, as well as your own powers, and more about if you know when and how to replenish lost resources. To make things worse, they've added extra lives as collectible items. When your health goes down to 0, you get a few seconds of invulnerability and recover back to full. They are really unsatisfying to have pop, frankly. When actual death is at stake, you feel a satisfaction and relief from performing a glory kill, which gives you a ton of health to keep you going. Extra lives rob you of this because you just get all your health back automatically. It also feels like you're cheaping through the fight, because as long as you still have extra lives, there is no standard that each fight holds you to, before you can progress. You can play as poorly as you want, and the game still lets you through. This mechanic reflects poorly on the confidence of the developers in their combat systems. As if to counteract the increased difficulty and intensity, they gave you this method to get past fights without actually beating them. I'm not entirely opposed to this kind of mechanic, as sometimes a fight just isn't fun anymore. But there's so many of them that on my first ever playthrough on Ultra Violence, never once did I die properly. The game is so allergic to letting a player fail that it will push you through no matter what. And, of course, we've also got Sentinel armor. This mechanic lets you activate a massive damage negation buff after you've died several times in one fight. The game just will not let anyone fail. Another side effect is that, since most of your resources are acquired from demons, you must always have demons around you to do so. Most arenas are progressed by killing the heavy and super heavy demons, while the fodder respawns infinitely. This means that killing the weak foes is entirely pointless if you're not getting some resource from them. Sometimes an arena will need you to mop up some imps or zombie men before it lets you out, but it's inconsistent on when that happens. Furthermore, it's really silly in many ways how all boss fights need to have random zombies standing around the arena. It both looks silly, but also feels like the demons are letting you kill them, so that you have a chance to win. It feels especially egregious in the very final boss of Doom Eternal's storyline, the Dark Lord. You've got these nice passive friendly demons just standing around, graciously letting you kill them for resources. At this point, why not just put respawning pickups on the ground? The way it is now, it's the same thing but with extra steps. It really highlights how arbitrary and needlessly complicated the Doom Eternal combat loop can be, at its worst. I also have to say something about the weapon balancing. Now, given the progression of the game, there is a quite beautiful balance to them. You're not going to go a single playthrough without being borderline forced to use each of them at some point. Unfortunately, taken as a totality, some of the roster is underwhelming. The combat shotgun, for example, I always forget it even exists on later levels of the game. It doesn't have the damage, range, or utility that other weapons do. Its main trump card, destroying weak spots with the Sticky Bomb mod, gets outperformed by the Precision Bolt on the heavy rifle very early on, and the only utility of the Full Auto mod is getting some shells for your kill. Which, don't get me wrong, there is some utility in that, but it takes a bit too much fiddling around to be worth it in my view. The heavy rifle is another problem. The best thing it can do is, again, eliminate weak spots using one of its mods. But even at that, it's not the best. The ballista has the same range and very similar, if not higher damage, but it doesn't require you to zoom in. You just shoot at the weak spot to destroy it. It's useful for when you've just fired the ballista and it would be faster to swap to the PB to fire again. But it doesn't say well about the weapon that its only benefit is being a stopgap between better weapons. The micro missiles have a whole lot of problems I'll get into later. The only benefit of the primary fire is that it's easy to stagger weak demons for a glory kill. But again, this just means the weapon is so bad that its only purpose is to not kill enemies. This isn't even the last one, but I have to mention the chain gun. This weapon has arguably two of the 4 best weapon mods in the game, but the primary fire is just underwhelming. It doesn't deal much damage, it consumes a fair amount of ammo, doesn't have any crowd control, and just isn't satisfying to use. Even against hordes of weaker enemies, it doesn't do enough DPS to be a useful option over something more explosive. Which, to be fair, was also the case in the original Dooms, so clearly they were just paying homage. And finally, the Unmaker. Compared to the standard weaponry, it's by far the best. It's got damage, crowd control, rate of fire, and ammo efficiency. But what kills it is that it's a power weapon alongside the BFG and shares its ammo. The big fucking gun. How can you even hope to rival something like that? Whip it out, fire it into the air, 90% of enemies within 10 light years of you instantly die, and you're only left with the few hardiest of foes. The only benefit the Unmaker has over its counterpart is that it's more ammo efficient to use against singular strong targets. A Baron of Hell won't die from a BFG ball, but it will die to a little demonic laser, for a cost in ammo less than that of the Snot Ball. However, the utility of just clearing out all the trash within your vicinity is too good to pass up. Several weak enemies are far more dangerous than one strong enemy, because it's harder to keep track of them. Furthermore, the problem is that the BFG requires 30 units of ammo to fire one shot. Therefore, even if you fire just once from the Unmaker, you've expended less ammo than with the BFG, but you're still one cell down in effect, as you've eaten into this 30 cell supply. To get your money's worth, you'll have to keep firing for 29 more cells, and if you accidentally go one over, that's another BFG shot down. While I'm on this topic, they also had to give the Barons an artificial resistance to the BFG because they needed it to not kill them in one shot. This is the first example of such lazier, non-organic balancing of the game. Also, this has been weighing on me for a long time, but I feel like the BFG is a little less satisfying to use than in Doom 4. Just a nitpick. I also have a bone to pick with some of the weaknesses on enemies. It's patently obvious that, in an effort to make all mechanics important to use, they just slapped a damage vulnerability or resistance on some enemies. It's really lazy. What is the utility of the Blood Punch? Well, it's a fairly powerful attack with an AoE, but it's usually too risky to go for intentionally. So we just made Doom Hunters, Pinkies, and Cyber Mankibai take additional damage from this ability. People aren't using the Microwave Beam mod because it's dogshit? Well, when playing the DLC, here's an enemy that can only be killed with this dogshit mod. Nobody's using the full auto mod because it's dogshit? In the second DLC, we've added enemies with a huge damage negation for anything other than this dogshit mod. Why hasn't anyone figured this out before? This is how you force players to use all weapons. Just swap out the value of a variable, and you too can have chess at 100 km an hour. You'll never have to design varied weapons which derive their usefulness from their range, rate of fire, burst damage, mobility aids, or other utilities, because that requires effort. Just change your game into a glorified Summon Says, and everyone will be using your dogshit fucking Microwave Beam mod that they wouldn't have otherwise. I am being facetious, and to be fair, most of the arsenal options are fairly varied and useful in different circumstances on merit. But what's concerning is how, taking the timeline of Doom 4's and Eternal's update cycle, it seems like the devs were moving towards the Simon Says route, rather than a more freeform and organic combat structure. Playing the Ancient Gods 2 campaign, it's starting to feel increasingly artificial. Next up, I'm going to go down all the weapon mods and analyze them. The combat shotgun has a sticky grenade launcher, which can fire 3 times in quick succession before a reload animation. These bombs stick before exploding roughly a second later. They destroy weak points, which is a huge help with arachnotrons in the early game. This weapon mod has better damage, better range, crowd control, and ammo efficiency than the primary fire, so you should never not be firing those grenades in the first level, unless it's reloading. This weapon mod is too good. It might as well have been the primary fire for this weapon. The only minor problem I have is that a grenade detonating on impact is more satisfying to use than something which lands and connects, but only explodes later. The Gatling mod is so bad that you're better off using none at all, especially early game. It eats too much ammo, slows you down, and doesn't have the utility of the grenade. Its only truly transformative aspect is that, when mastered, enemies killed drop some shotgun ammo. To get the most out of it, you'll have to wear them down first with other weapons, and then finish them off. Or you could just press the chainsaw button for a much better effect. It's a no-brainer which mod you should pick. The Heavy Rifle's Precision Bolt is a high damage shot with a significant reload. You can fire it as soon as you press the Alt fire, letting you quickscope the thing. It removes weak points like nobody's business, and with less hassle than the sticky bombs. It's something to quick swap between, among other weapons. My only complaint is that quickscoping is what everyone uses this for anyway, so they might as well have cut out the hassle of a zoom in and made the Alt fire shoot the bolt on its own. The micro missiles are underwhelming. They deal a significant amount of damage, but it consumes a ton of ammo and doesn't destroy weak points. Furthermore, they explode with a delay, so you end up shooting more missiles than you needed to kill the thing. The Precision Bolt is just better in so many ways. Both mods for the plasma rifle suck, but one is downright dog water and the other is just redundant. The Microwave Beam mod makes my blood boil. You willingly have to hold down the Alt fire to lock on to one enemy, which slows you down a lot. Then, holding the primary fire will shoot out this weak-ass beam, which immobilizes enemies, drains a fuck ton of ammo, and slowly damages them. There's some bells and whistles, but that's the gist of it. The offensive portion of this functionality is just non-existent. The lock-on slows you down way too much to be used for any longer than a split second and exposes you to so many attacks. It doesn't even do good damage. I have no idea what the creators were thinking when they made this mod. Its only utility is that it's the only way to immobilize spirited enemies in the DLC campaigns. And technically eliminating the spirits too, but I've already made my feelings on this clear. So it's this awkward procedure of selecting the plasma gun, pressing right click, then left click, then swapping to something else and firing, then swapping back to the plasma. You could have just made the alt fire immediately shoot out the beam, but you had to make it complicated. The heat blast lets you fire off a heat blast, which is charged by shooting the primary fire. It does nothing new, it just deals some damage, just like the primary fire. There's nothing transformative about it. It's still my preferred option, but it's just so boring. The rocket launcher has two good mods. The remote detonation is kind of boring, but one of its upgrades lets you folter demons on command. This is quite transformative, as it's one of your few options to immobilize demons on command, and it doesn't really have a cooldown other than the fire rate itself. But it gets entirely overshadowed by the lock-on burst. This mod allows you to delete Whiplashes, Hell Knights and Revenants, as well as stagger Dread Knights in 2 mere clicks. This is one of your best options for DPS. It just chews through ammo, but the damage is worth it. You might sometimes want to use the remote detonation, but I always stick with the burst. I think the increased firepower of the rocket launcher kind of broke this mod. A single lock-on will eliminate several heavy demons, which were harder to get rid of in the previous game. The Super Shotgun has just one mod, and it's a game changer. The meat hook lets you grapple onto enemies and manipulate your movement to borderline fly around the arena. One problem I have with it is that the movement during the grapple is dependent upon your frame rate. With higher FPS, the strafe inputs rotate you around the target much faster. In the Ancient Gods 2, they added these meat hook nodes for you to use as part of platforming. And for some god-forsaken reason, the movement works as intended, regardless of the frame rate. So why could they not make it work with regular demons? The other is that, coupled with how easy it is to stagger flying enemies, being able to always get in for a glory kill almost robs them of the benefit of even flying. At this point, the flyers really are no different from regular enemies, just in the air, which is not a transformative change. The Ballista actually has two decent mods, but they're too similar for my taste. The Arbalest is a charged shot, akin to the Sticky Bomb, which deletes airborne enemies. It kills or staggers pain elementals in 2 shots, but it's not very useful in other situations. The Destroyer Blade fires off a penetrative arc, which can be ludicrously powerful. However, it's got 3 stages of charge, and the last one takes so long to charge up that you're essentially dead before you do, since you're entirely immobile during this period. The weaker ones are fine, but a flat arc is a less useful option than a voluminous cylinder, like the Siege mode was back in Doom 4. So the practicality of the Arbalest wins for me. I just wish both mods weren't variations on a powerful charged shot. I'd balance the Arbalest to consume more ammo, such that being a mobile anti-air turret wasn't so cost effective. And finally, the Chain Gun. Again, both mods are really good. The mobile turret is one of your best options for DPS, and it's a bit more ammo efficient than the lock-on burst. The other is the Energy Shield, which grants you a bubble of 100% invulnerability around you for a limited time. This is flatly broken, frankly, kind of for the same reason as the Wrangler in Team Fortress 2 was at one point. Just pressing right mouse button is too low a hurdle to jump over in order to get on-demand perfect invincibility. Routinely, when I don't feel like dealing with a Tyrant or Baron of Hell, I get up close to it, turn on the shield, and just keep shooting while repeatedly dashing into them. It's not usually enough to kill them outright, but it certainly is for many weaker foes. It's a weirdly exploitable and trivial to use power in a game that is marketed and touted as a thinking man's shooter. This has been part 1 of my total critique series on Doom Eternal. I am not done with writing the entire script, so I can't say at the moment how many parts there will be. I hope you don't get the wrong idea. The combat and gameplay of this game is extremely solid and enjoyable, one of the best designed set of game mechanics I've experienced. In this video, I've focused on outlining the many small balance and philosophy problems that slightly flaw the well-polished core. Thanks for watching.